The fact is that this is not a criminal case in my view because there's no underlying crime. Bragg took a dead misdemeanor, zapped it back into life as this pile of felonies. He essentially tried a series of federal crimes that the Department of Justice rejected. And he was only able to do that by this enabling judge. And I was not nearly as harsh on Juan Merchan until I sat in his courtroom. I was quite shocked with his rulings. I thought that they were well outside the strike zone and showed a lot of bias. But now the good news is that this case can be appealed in whole, and those decisions can be reviewed.
It's really hard to have spent like a nanosecond in that courtroom and not view Juan Merchan as being biased against the defense. Look, I'm pro-prosecution. I've never seen a judge as pro-prosecution as Juan Merchan. Yes, that's why he signaled no active prison time. That's why he sentenced no probation, so he could go forward and go to all of his cocktail parties and say, I'm the one that made Donald Trump a felon. What he also needs to add, though, John, is I helped him get reelected. I helped him become Grover Cleveland Part 2. Because if he doesn't add that part of it, he's being disingenuous. This lawfare, this taking of a misdemeanor and putting some costume jewelry on it and calling it a felony is part of why he won most popular vote in the Electoral College.
Donald Trump, I thought, gave a pretty effective statement where he said, quite simply, I was indicted because my accountant labeled legal expenses, and that's why I'm here. He said this person could have labeled them concrete or electrical or anything like that. They didn't. They were legal expenses because they were payments to a lawyer. They were logged as such, and now I've been indicted. He also talked about Michael Cohen. He said how he was a disbarred attorney, but yet he was allowed to speak as if he was George Washington. He pointed out from the screen that he was speaking from, he saw into the courtroom, and he could see Matthew Colangelo, who used to be a top senior official at the Biden Department of Justice, who left that spot, took a pretty big career downgrade to go join Alvin Bragg and prosecute Donald Trump. He pointed him out and said, this is evidence that the Department of Justice was involved. That was his perspective. And then he said, and I thought this was a very effective line, he said, speaking to Judge Merchan, he said, people watched the trial in your courtroom and the people voted decisively. I won all 7 swing states. And, as he was saying that, I was thinking about, as I walked into the courtroom, that the only protesters, per se, who were here were Trump supporters. And even as I'm standing here right now, I'm looking into a square and I'm looking at people holding Trump flags. I'm looking at a person who has a sign that says, enough is enough. We voted. We don't want this lawfare anymore. I will note on the audio playback that we're about to get from the court, and so everyone will be able to hear for themselves, it is noteworthy that during the trial, there was no audio, there were no cameras, but for this particular sentencing, Judge Merchan agreed to have audio. I can't help but think it's because he wants the world to hear his voice sentence Donald Trump, because we were not able to have that before.